Okay, so we'll get started on the slide deck, and we'll be switching back and forth between that and several other things. So here we go. Okay, thank you again for your patience because of all the subbing, and it just never was, I was never able to actually get a meeting pulled together and recorded for January. I did work with most of you to get things moved to the point where we need to be today. So today we're going to really focus on ACT, Aspire preparation. Those are the two big ones, ACT being the biggest, Forward also being a part of what we're going to be talking about. So ideas, because I know that we've got a couple of people who are new to this. So if you've got ideas, things that work, things that you'd like to see happen better, please, let's talk about them. All right, so let's dive right into the ACT. So things that should have already been happening and should be going on right now is, first of all, your materials should have all arrived. Make sure that you have checked them in and inventoried the numbers. So make sure that those are right. Please lock them up in a secure place. You should have been provided some kind of an overage, and it varies from year to year what the number is. It might be as low as 10. It might be several percents of your student population. But if you need more, order them through the Pearson Access Next. And this is for standard time paper assessments only. If you need additional, for instance, there are students who have, you've applied for accommodations and they've heard nothing back yet. If something comes up as like, okay, we made a decision, we now need this and we don't have this, you need to call the accommodations line of ACT in order to order that. Don't go through Pearson Access Next. So please be working with your testing assessment coordinator on that to ensure that you get all the material that you need. And if there are any outstanding students who there's been no decision made. Sarah and I have found that in the advanced placement test, we could get decisions about accommodations as late as the day before. I don't think ACT is usually that slow on things, but so just please keep in mind that it could, to be checking on those things. So the non-testing, and I need to be real careful about how I use this language because we're later going to be talking about not tested. So the non-testing, pre-test information. Obviously, it's best if you complete it prior to testing. However, you do not have to do that. So if a student is absent right now, they cannot do this the day of the test, but they can do this the day up to 2 days after the test. Bottom line is, if you can't catch up with a student and they show up for test day, please go ahead and test them. It is not required to, in order to take the test, that they go in and do the, the sign in to My ACT. However, this is the way that ACT is going to provide the students with test results. So this is where they're going to get things emailed to them. They're going to have a place they can log in to look at these results, etc. So if they don't fill this out, they will not get their results. You can get them later on, probably 8 to 12 weeks later, and we'll talk about that, through the website success.act.org. And you can go through and pull individual student reports, including those who have not done the My ACT. So Ben, I know you had a question earlier. Could you touch base on that one again?
Yeah, if we get the list of students that enrolled late to us and they are not on our reports, how do we get numbers and how do we get them connected to our school and how do we get them to pre-register or do the non-testing portion?
Yeah, so again, the numbers, the ACT code that I pulled and sent to each of you was based on the DPI's upload of student information on the 19th of January, which, as Ben pointed out, was just days before semester, and we know how many changes happen at semester. So you might have a couple dozen students who are new to your building, they change from one school in Madison to another, they change districts. Those students, I'll have to get information. I'll see if I can get information in the next couple of days from DPI as to how to get a number for them, or if we cannot get an ID of ACT codes for them to log in, how are they supposed to address the pre-test or non-test information? We also talked about the fact that not every piece of that information that pre-test is absolutely critical to being completed. So if you are getting to the point where students have to put in their high school course loads and what their grades were, if that is not done, it does not negate all their work and doesn't cancel out their information. So bottom line is, I will connect with DPI later today, once we're done here, to see what we can do, what the process is for that. It's probably buried in the success.act.org or the Wisconsin version of ACT online, those documents. Somewhere it says that, but I don't know where it is. So I will connect with them and find out. Okay. Things to be thinking about as we move forward. So we need to provide training to whoever it is that is on ACT Day, which is March 8th again. It will be a juniors only. We need to have proctors on hand. So one of the things that needs to happen is you need to figure out what students are going in what setting. Keeping in mind that students with accommodations or supports for EL students probably best be grouped together. Accommodations absolutely need to be grouped together. So if they have a timing code 4, for instance, all students with timing code 4 and only those students with timing code 4 can be put into that session. So working it out as to who goes where. You may decide that student A and student B are like oil and water and should not be in the same room. That's fine. You can move them to separate rooms, but then you need to go back and figure out how you're going to ensure that there are proctors in each of those rooms. The training for proctors, the administration manual, which is a
actually, Tim, it's not the administration manual, it's the test coordinator information.
You're right. You're right. I was just going to thank you. It's the kind of rust colored. There are 4 different documents as far as manuals. So there's one that's kind of a maroon rust colored document that is in there. It is on page 21 through 23 of that test coordinator information manual. And so that outlines what is it that you need to talk about in the professional development. I know that I think some schools have put together, I don't know if East put together a slide deck from the past to take people through that. We can dig into that and share that if we can come across that. One of the things that you need to ensure, I've listed a couple. Okay, great, thank you. I know you're right. Darcy did share their slide deck, so that's very helpful. One of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're going through the professional development is students will need to be identified, and that is done in a couple different ways. Number one, student ID. So the students need to have an ID, or if the teacher, the proctor, the staff member is familiar with them and recognizes them, that's also okay. So a visual identification or a staff or a student ID. Yes, Rochelle, we'll make sure that we send that back out, that slide deck, so that everybody has it. And if there are any others that I come across, we'll also send those. So kind of you can pick and create, pull slides from different pieces. Keep in mind that there are also there are forms that need to be provided for staff members when they do the testing on that day. So they will be filling out, for instance, a seating chart. They will be filling out um, and signing off on how many test booklets they get and what number the test booklets are. So that is a piece of the training that's really important. It's also really important to connect about what an irregularity is and how to respond. I know that yeah, any questions or anything? I know that one of the critical pieces that somehow always slips through is cell phone usage. To have a cell phone turned on is, and if it were to go off during a test, is an irregularity. So in the past, one of the things that we've done is we've had students put their cell phones in a plastic bag. You can have them label it, or you can just have them put it in a box. Putting that in a place, ensuring that they're off is a really important thing, and then returning it to them when the testing is done. There are a lot of students who are really hesitant to give up cell phones, and so again, how you want to approach that, I would strongly urge you to just say, this is what we're doing. You can keep it in front of them so that they see it, so they know it's not going anywhere, etc. Also, just it's really important to have set out that prior to testing that the students know what room they're going to be in. And so I know that in the past, several buildings have had lists of room numbers and who is in that room posted for students around the school, posted for students to be able to see that. Finally, it's really important to have a meeting the morning of the test. So prior to testing, you would gather all the proctors in and say, okay, here are last minute reminders. And, if there are any questions, again, as we get close to the actual test, that you share responses to those questions, or you address those. All right. Now, it being March 8th in Wisconsin, there are potentials to have snow. If we have a snow day, this winter has been pretty mild in general. I would suggest that you keep in mind that ACT is the one who makes the decision about what happens. You know that, sorry, there's a second phone in this office. I just moved. The second phone is ringing, of course. So if there's a snow day, MMSD is shut down. The first thing you need to do is just call ACT and tell them that is the case. They will then tell you what you're supposed to do with all your test booklets, all your answer sheets, all the material, etc. We haven't fortunately had this situation, but if it is something that happens, the window 2, also known as the makeup date, is Tuesday, March 22nd. And that happens to be, I believe, the week right before spring break. So not an ideal time, but that's what we've got. There is a window 3 in April. We don't even want to talk about that. So we'll get there if this were to happen. All right. One of the things that it's really critical is we want to make sure that we're better positioned this year to get all students accounted for. Been working with the team from STEM Academy, from IAE and all the different programs there, from Metro, from Horizon High School, and we're working through how are we going to move materials around to make sure that those students have access to the test on the test date as appropriate. One of the things that I know is going to come from this is there will be, if we don't have this list already to you, there will be a short list of students, for instance, from STEM Academy who will be coming to your school. They are rostered, as being your students, so they will come to your school in order to take the ACT. So just want you to be aware, you may want to put all of them in one room. You may want, I don't know if you want to mix them up with others, etc. Same is true for other IAE programs. So please keep that in mind as we get closer and closer and you're starting to get that list of students together. So with all those sites also working right now that the students will do the non-test portion at their current location, which I'm calling their home site, not at yours, so you don't have to worry about that. If anyone is in a program that is listed here or not listed here, that they're elsewhere, please keep in mind that I'm working hard to ensure that they get that pre-testing material done there, that you don't have to worry about it. We'll make sure that you do get a list of students from each of these programs so that you can, and I'll try and get that as soon as possible to you so that you can get that ironed out. Okay. Transportation. So it took me a while to figure out who is in charge of transportation in the district. We have a couple of new staff members, team members, and so connected with Kenneth Thomas, who is in charge of regular ed transportation around the district. He would like to have information provided to him so that it would help him in working with the bus company to ensure that students will get home. So I want to share the survey that Ben put together. I am going to just stop presenting here for a moment. I want to make sure that you're able to see this. Okay, so this is the survey. Very straightforward. What is it? What is your name? Last name, first name, what's your ID? And then I plan on taking the bus home after the ACT on Tuesday, March 8th. Yes or no? And if you answer yes, then you go on to the rest of the form. So here are some details. Are you under extended, do you have extended time as approved by ACT? So I'm going to be taking a bus at 3. If not, then are you going to take the bus at 1 o'clock? And if you're not sure, that's also there. What address are you going to? And then this would be specific to Memorial, but also what route that you take in the afternoon. So I will, if Ben, if you're okay with this, I will share a copy with everyone so that you can then take, because it's translated into Spanish. I know it's not in Hmong, but we've got this much, and then you can set it up for your specific school and get that out to juniors. This is what Ken Thomas would like to see so that he can work with the bus company to ensure that there's enough buses going to the right places for the students who are expecting to take the bus. Now, we all know we're talking about high school students, so that doesn't mean that just because they say yes, they're actually going to do it. But I don't want, and I know you don't want people stranded in places where we could have had transportation for them. So I will get that out to everyone ASAP. Rochelle?
So if students ride the city bus, this is for those students too, correct? Not just students who automatically get a school bus, it's for anyone. Is that correct?
So I can tell you that Madison Metro will not run early buses specifically, for instance, at 1 o'clock. They cannot do that.
Okay, that was my other question. Okay.
So there's something with their federal funding, and it can't, however they work it. We've been through this with them back and forth for several years, and finally they just said, absolutely not, we won't do it. So if there's a bus that stops at a bus stop outside of East on a regular basis, and they can take the regular route home, that's fine. There will not be a long line of Madison Metro buses. So,
but they'll have to wait until that bus actually runs. So that means they'll be lingering around until that time happens.
yes.
Okay, we don't want that.
Right.
You know, what they've asked is, what are the needs that we have? So far we have 238 kids that have replied to this, and it's going up because they're giving the survey now. and 31 of them have said they want transportation. None of them are Badger bus kids right now, or none of them are testing till 3 o'clock based on their responses. But I'm going to provide this to, who is it again that I'm providing it to?
And Kenneth Thompson.
Right,
Thomas.
Kenneth. And then he's going to put together routes, probably using yellow buses or smaller Badger buses or even cabs. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to find a way to get these kids home on the things other than the city bus. So we just have to get him the addresses. And I did it, I grouped it by what are the buses that we normally run. And we have 10 routes normally. And if a kid says, I normally take Country Grove, those kids will be clustered, obviously. But you know, I've got 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6 as my numbers on each bus right now.
Yeah, and so that's his job, and Badger Bus to ensure that they figure out what's the most effective way of getting all those students home. So the critical piece is trying to understand how many students actually need transportation and where they would typically go. So we'll let the transportation experts figure out how to get them home, but it might be that a student who normally would ride a Metro bus might end up on a yellow bus for this particular day.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if 1 o'clock is an approximate time, isn't it? I'm trying to remember if it's like 1:30, you know, between 1 and 1:30 is when the kids will be out and ready to roll quickly. They get to the last portion of the test, the writing portion, and they're done. They're burnt out. So they go quickly, oftentimes much too quickly. So they'll be done. 1:30 is probably the latest, but you know, if you tell them 1:15, something like that, that's a close enough approximation. So I'll share that survey from Memorial with everyone as soon as we're done here. Okay.
Tim,
Yeah.
do you have, I can't remember, do you have a slide about virtual students, Madison Promise students?
I do not.
Okay, there's a question Emily was wondering about whether Madison Promise students would be testing. So I didn't know if you had guidance around that.
Great question. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. So once again, state testing. So this is going to be true with Aspire as well in the forward. So ACT cannot be given virtually. It is an in-person test only. So those students who are at Madison Virtual in any kind of setting will need to be invited in. And depending on your numbers, you know, I would simply email and ask for a response. And if you don't get a response, then you have to just assume that they're not going to come in. I would probably email twice is probably a good number. Again, safety protocols would say they can't be mixed in with other students who are in attendance on a regular basis. That you could potentially say, based on the numbers, they could be, you know, spread out in a room with other students from a virtual setting. Because I can't think that you would do, we can't have enough people to do a one-on-one test for each virtual set as student. So that's kind of, I think, where it's falling. Does that make sense to people? Yes, no, okay. So, all right. Thank you for bringing that up. Once we're done testing, a second. Once we're done testing, on that day comes the shipping, packing up and shipping. So if you take a look at pages 30 through 36 of the test coordinator information manual, it goes through all the shipping and what has to go in each of the poly bags, what has to go into the boxes, in which order. So if you have questions about that, You can call ACT on that day that you're packing. Where do irregularity reports go? Those kinds of things. But it's laid out in those pages of the manual. And once again, I wanted to say that Tuesday, the 22nd is the makeup day. So if you've got a bunch of students who are sick on the, they're quarantined, they're on the 8th, and they're ready to roll, we need to provide them an option to take the test either on the 22nd or into April. So, all right, getting close to the end. Here's just a thing you need to keep in mind. Please keep track of students and why they do not test. So here is not tested reasons. So not to be confused of non-tested or pre-test information. So if a student doesn't show up, or if they opt out, or if they go through there's a whole list of things that is in this code booklet. You should have gotten something like this in the boxes of materials. So the best thing to do is just to keep track of who did not show up. And you'll have to put a reason why. I think there are 8 different reasons why a student did not test, all the way from significant or traumatic medical reasons to they're taking the DLM, the dynamic learning maps, the alternate assessment, to parents opting them out, to being absent. So that has to happen. You can even start making a list right now of those students who are already scheduled to take the dynamic learning map assessment, because those would be ultimately put into Pearson Access Next as an alt. So there's a process it goes through. It takes you and shows you what the steps are for getting to what are called the state use questions. You only have to answer one for each student. Please keep in mind that this is a hard part, and I know it gets messy because it's just crazy, and then it overlaps with Aspire and Forward. But every year I need to report to the board how many students opted out. So if you have a note from a parent, so that could be a handwritten note, it could be an email, it could be a text, which case if you take a screenshot, you can send that to me. Please send that to us because we have to keep track of those kinds of things. If the student is absent and you just believe that they said, yeah, I'm not showing up, that in one sense that is opting out. But if there's a specific note saying that they are opting out from the family, then that's what I need to have a copy of. But it's a whole lot easier to start keeping track of who shows up and who is not now versus when you're in the midst of trying to pack everything up and trying to keep track of things then. Okay, then finally, we get to, so when do kids get results back? For students, 3 to 8 weeks, and it will be in their My ACT account. Depending on how things roll, remember that ACT is constantly, as assessments come in for scoring, they're constantly going through this. If we happen to hit a lull in their scoring or sometime that's down, the results are back in 3 weeks. If it's a typical scoring, they're probably back between 6 and 8 weeks. That's when students will start saying, hey, I got my results. You will start seeing results in Pearson Access Next closer to 12 weeks. But anywhere after 8 to 12 weeks is when I would expect to start seeing things. We'll talk about what is in success.act.org later. It just is a place where I don't know how soon the results are going to be loaded there. I won't know results until approximately 12 weeks in after that date. So, and if students test in a makeup setting, or they're doing the assessment over multiple days, it will be, I mean, you have to ship it back separately and it will take a little bit longer. Okay, any questions about ACT before we move on to Aspire. Okay, so 9 and 10 only approved in the principal's bulletin tomorrow. April 12th is the day. That's a Tuesday. We have a week after spring break, and then the following week will be Aspire Day. So thank you for your patience. I just wanted to make sure I don't want to say things that are out of order. So I had to double, triple check on that. Right now, as of February 11th, students have been rostered to the Aspire login. So just as we had this process where we could double check to see what students were in the ACT report, who's there, the same thing is true for Aspire. Now, this looks amazingly like the ACT login, which is a horrible thing, but that's the way they have set it up. So the key part here is that when you get to this, please look for this portion right here. It'll say Wisconsin Aspire, and then it will give the dates of the test, right? Because the worst thing is if you decide, well, I'm going to go and check this for the student. How come the student isn't there? And you spend a lot of time and you're looking at ACT when you really wanted to look at Aspire or vice versa. So here is the login for Aspire Pearson Access Next. It's aspire.act.org. So that will take you to the correct login. Your login username and password is different than the ACT Pearson Access Next. It should be your email address as your username. Okay, we're going through the process of double checking to ensure that everybody is in there over the course of this, the rest of this week. So once you're in there, once you're able to log in, here are the steps. And again, I can make sure that you have this to get the list of students who are supposed to be or who are uploaded on February 11th. You go to the reports. So if I go back here, you'll see reports. And then this takes you through the steps: operational reports, students and registration report. You download it, you'll get an Excel sheet, and it will not have the MMSD ID. It'll have the state ID under local student code. So it'll have that 10-digit number. So you have to do a VLOOKUP in order to make sure that you've got who is listed there. Again, this was uploaded after the start of second semester, so it should be a little bit easier as far as students have settled into classes, and we should not have a ton of movement. That doesn't mean we won't have any new students since February 11th, but it should be a smaller number than what we usually have. So you want to check that soon. Now, because we've got both of these things happening at the same time, Sarah and I are trying to be very cognizant of not mixing the things happening so that you're going, what am I doing, ACT or Aspire? So we're waiting until after March 8th to do some things for Aspire. After March 8th, the ACT day, we will be sending you information about English learners and their supports and IEP information. Once we go through that process and it's reconciled and you say, yes, 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 we're all good, then we're going to go in and complete what it's called the personal needs profile. Since Aspire is a computer-based test, we have to go in and check the boxes, so to speak. So we have to provide those accommodations and supports for students in Pearson Access Next. And of course, they come up with the PNP acronym, so personal needs profile. Students, once that is done, and we'll let you know when that's done, you will need to go in and set students up into sessions within Pearson Access Next. There, I'll have a video on how to do that. We have people who've done that several times, but so that please, we'll reach out to each other, work with each other. Thoughts about, how am I going to set up? Am I going to do 9th grade only? Yes. Or I'm going to mix them, whatever you want to do. Again, students who with IEPs and similar personal needs profiles best be put together so that if they have, for instance, time and a half or breaks as needed as their accommodation, then they should be in a similar room with other students in the same accommodation. So once you have sessions figured out, as far as where you have students, how many, then you're going to need to figure out who will proctor those assessments. And that's again when proctor training will take place. So most of this is going to happen in, you're going to get ACT boxed up and shipped out. And then the very next day, you're going to wake up and say, good, no more ACT. I get to do Aspire. So it'll kind of just flow right into that. And it won't seem like much of a break. So after students are loaded into sessions and you're all set with that, if you get that done prior to spring break, let us know. We will print the tickets and it will be one color per domain. And if I remember right, and Sarah, I think we talked about this, that there's one ticket to a page. So
Yes, I haven't checked them this year yet, but that's what they've been in the past.
So you're going to get a ton of paper. Shelley, you want to?
No, I get it. You're gonna have a ton of tickets for different sessions for one student on one page, right?
No.
No, you'll
unfortunately,
have
No.
five
Yeah.
tickets per student.
You're gonna-
Great.
5,
You're going to
okay.
have 5 sheets of paper for one student.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, no, don't thank me because
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, don't thank you. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. So otherwise, so yeah, I hate to even say it, if you want to do this, set up the sessions, if you find yourself setting up sessions during spring break, again, email us when you're done. That's when we're going to be able to go in and print the tickets. So we return, I believe, on the 3rd or 4th of April. We'll be printing tickets and get them to you that week because the next week is already Aspire week, Aspire Day. So as soon as you're done, let us know and we'll get those tickets to you. Okay, questions about Aspire? We will be having another meeting. I know that because questions will come up and we'll be talking about that again, just as we want to get ACT taken care of. That's the main focus right now.
I just have one comment. I just ran the report. It doesn't have grade level. And I don't
Really?
understand why, because I know that the kids are organized by grade level, but why they wouldn't have grade level on the actual report, I don't know.
I'm guessing, I don't know either because I haven't done this report. And another thing I'll add is that I will be working this next week to get these up to date, for you guys with any transfers, et cetera, and any new missing students. My guess is it's because early high school is like the category for the test.
Right.
I still don't know why they wouldn't do that.
But they still, I went to the little training session that they ran and they wanted us to group 9th grade together and 10th grade together, and they don't even identify on their report here. And I don't understand why they wouldn't on their organization registration report have grade level.
Right.
You can VLOOKUP it in there because you do have a state ID number, but
right. And again, it's not a system that somebody who's actually been in a school helped design. So
Yeah, because we got 1,000 kids.
Right, right.
And even just verifying is a pain in the butt.
Yep.
Because you don't have a list of 9th graders and a list of 10th graders.
Oh, I hear you. Yep. Okay, so the last bit for today is regarding the forward exam. So everyone has gotten, if you're involved in doing the forward exam, you've gotten a Google sheet that is kind of a review, asking for you to review EL supports, what are needed. That's due on Friday. So once that is, we have that, we'll be uploading those to the software, which is called eDirect. So now here's your third platform. And we'll make sure that you have that. So eDirect will have all the students, the supports and accommodations loaded into that. So that is due on Friday. And if you have questions, please reach out to Sarah, who can help you out with, specifics about that.
Can we just get that? It's a Google sheet, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you reshare that so it's at kind of the top of my inbox, and then I can,
Sure. I'll
as
do
you
it
said, it's due tomorrow or Friday.
on
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, it's from yeah.
And I
I'll
haven't
send it
seen
again.
anything coming from Cindy, and it's only ESL. It has nothing to do with kids
Yes, and
with
it's
accommodations.
just
Those
10.
get pulled
It's just 10th
automatically.
grade. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I'll reshare
All right.
it.
Thank you.
So going on at this end, so what happens is once all of those supports and accommodations are uploaded, things are frozen in the forward platform, and we can't add anything. So that's why we're pushing to get this stuff in early. Not early, I mean, it's timely. We're cutting it close. The week of the 7th, things open up. So yay, the day before ACT, things open up again, and we're now able to print tickets for this. There will be tickets that are only one color because 10th grade, the only grade in high school that takes this exam, is only taking the social studies test. So the social studies test this year, by the way, is new in that state standards have changed, and the exam has changed to represent those new standards and the way things are supposed to be taught. So we don't know what this is going to be. My understanding is that first reaction from students who took pilot tests is that they were like, wow, that's a lot harder than the other one. So I don't know, but just keep that in mind. I know that the CNI social studies person, Marty Moe, has talked to the department chairs repeatedly over the last year or two about this new social studies portion of the test coming out. So things to do. Again, we're talking now, we have a window for forward from the 21st of March through, I believe it is the end of April. It's 6 weeks, 1 week of which we are on spring break. So you need to determine how you're going to give that. It is approximately 90 minutes long, broken up into 2 sessions. It's the same ticket, the same login for each session. So students can do, it doesn't matter which session gets done first. If a student makes a mistake and clicks 2, calling that a mistake, they click on the second session first, they can go ahead and finish it. It's not, one does not depend upon the other. So I know in some cases in the past, it's been the social studies department that has done this. It has been, I can't imagine that you would want to do this on Aspire Day because Aspire is actually longer than the ACT. But that's an option if you want to do that. And so again, thinking about who is going to help, when you're going to do this, who is going to be involved, will provide you then with who needs to do the training for proctoring this. Okay. So that's what I have for forward. Just things are moving ahead, and not the test itself is back to its pre-pandemic normal self in that last year it was a shortened test. That's not the case. It does affect high schools in that they had some questions that they pulled out to make the social studies portion shorter last year. Those have been put back in. Again, we need to keep track of who tested, who did not, and the reasons why they did not. So all three of these tests, it's really important because we have to address why or who didn't test and for what reason. Each of these has a not tested reason portion. So, and again, just a reminder, in general, families, according to the Board of Education, families have the right to opt out. It must be done in writing. We don't want things on the phone. If somebody is face-to-face with you, that might be the exception. If you are familiar with a parent and they're face-to-face and say, I don't want my student to do that, ask them to write it down. But if they say no way, then just honor that and let me know. Keep in mind also that an opt-out is only good for 1 year. So if they opted out last year, this is a new year, it's a new assessment. Also, we're working with the communications department to get information out to families so that they understand the importance of actually taking the test and not opting out. Why do we want people to do this? What are the reasons, the rationale for actually doing this? How does it affect the school? How does it affect the district, etc.? So that is in the works. I'll be sending out draft letters to you that have been translated so that you can send things home to families as we get closer to the test dates. Specifically, just you can send them out school messenger. You can do however you communicate best with families. So it could be multiple ways. It could be in the school, the principal newsletter home or something like that. But we'll be sending information to you shortly, especially about ACT, followed by Aspire and the forward tests. Keep in mind, I know this is not a good time and we're reevaluating this, but we do have office hours. We are available every Monday and Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. via Zoom. And if you need the Zoom link, you want one, please let us know and we'll make sure you get that. So finally, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to connect with us, and we will do our best to get you answers as soon as possible. Okay.
One quick question.
Yes.
Cindy Green was talking about how there is a budget for breakfast, and it sounded like it's pretty significant because I heard East High School is like doing Panera. You know, box lunch, box breakfast, bringing it in, everybody prepared. So is it that big? I mean, can we spend like $8 to $10 a kid?
I'm not the one to ask.
Okay.
So if you
Somebody got approved.
If you want to reach out to Cindy, sounds like she's the one who's got the purse strings. So
Yeah, we talked to Cindy. It wasn't my suggestion, but yeah, that's what we're doing.
Pretty, pretty cool. I mean, we would love to be able to do pancakes and sausage and scrambled eggs and stuff, but and I guess that's viewed as more cross-contamination than handing kids a box and then they get a drink. And
right. So that's what I would suggest is connecting with Cindy to see A, what the budget is, B, what your options are for actually doing this. So,
yeah. All right.
Okay.